Okay, so let's take a look at Canadian yen on the 4-hour charts here. Now, I'm going to throw in a tricky one here. Now, this is also a trend here. This is a downtrend we're working with. Now, as we're looking at a downtrend, let's first look into where the downtrend began, and it began somewhere in this zone here. So as the downtrend kicked in for the very first time, it pulls back, and then he goes down, down, and down, and he does all of his breaches, blah, blah, blah. Once he does his breaches and he comes down, we start marking our territories and be like, okay, sell zone, sell zone, sell zone. All right, in this sell zone, now watch carefully how the buyers come in. Now, when he dropped from this breach, what's the lowest point? There. Prices haven't gone below ever since when they started pulling back. Who's responsible? This guy. Now, in this process of who's responsible and everything, notice how price goes up and starts to weaken. As it starts to weaken in this area, sudden boost of energy. Okay? Keep this in mind. The guy was completely weak, the rubber band man, as he was going up in this entire process. Now, you got to stay aware of this information. He was weak, lots of rest. Barely made it higher, lots of rest. Barely made a higher high. In fact, didn't make a higher high. Rest, 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 rest. Tries again, more rest. As if he quit. But then suddenly he gets this boost of energy and you're like, what in the world? He breached this high. Not only that, for 2 candles, which is 8 hours in this particular case, he held in the zone of the challenge area. And it almost looks like, is that above? And then the third candle comes crashing down and news comes in where you have only a 4-hour window left to say, this is it. This is it. 4-hour window left. Okay, it's a 4-hour chart, so you're obviously going to have a 4-hour window left saying that I got to get in from here. Your stop loss is obviously going to have to be up here in this zone here. Okay, and aggressive entries right there. And it looks like, well, he's just going to fly down from here. Like, it doesn't look correct. Right? So, this is a very tricky one. Also a trend style, because not only is it challenging a trend, but it's also challenging a channel. If you were to look at it in a channel state of mind, it's also challenging that. Okay? So if you look at this on a larger scale, yeah, this is support equals resistance from here. It's like, okay, well, on a larger scale, as a support resistance there, this thing just looks like 2 candles going up and going down. Okay, if I was to move this up to a higher time frame, that's what it will look like. Maybe even just a wick, just popping up and popping down. So it never happened. But on this time frame, it's scary. It's like, well, what is that? So you have to read this story very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. So let's move on to the next one just below it. Okay, markets come crashing down from here, breaches this whole spot, comes all the way down to here. And now from here, no lower low has happened ever since. Until sellers, big retracement, sellers try again, retracement, sellers try again, retracement, sellers try again, dead. That means buyers have begun. Buyers go up, they breach this area. Let's put the dotted line. Buyers have begun, they breach that dotted line area. As they get up to here, they try to go up again, no higher high, stop. No higher high, weak, 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 and then comes down the collapse. Okay? Now the collapse is coming in hard, just like it did earlier here. It just keeps running away. So it's not like here there was a collapse, and then it goes up one more time to try. Right? But here, there's a collapse, and it's just dropping. It's dropping like mayhem. Because there is one more piece of information that's overlooked. You see this candle right here, where it's just green, and prior to that was also green, but there's something odd about it. It's because a weekend gap happened here. Okay? Once a weekend gap happens like that, you're bound to get different types of players coming into the market. Different people, different folks, different investors. So you got a slightly different outlook coming in with a fresher mind. Okay, so when you look at things like that and you see a massive move downwards, it might be tempting to jump in early, or you can start to say, well, if he again doesn't make a lower low, maybe it's going to turn into a range. A range in the context of a downtrend, right? So now you're using two concepts together. Okay, so when you, so when you look at this further, he starts to pull back, and in this pullback, this is as far as he can make it before he starts collapsing again. And that's when your reign ends for a pullback. Okay, so two opportunities. We got an aggressive opportunity by joining the market there. We got a conservative entry by joining the market there. Okay, this is actually not conservative. It would for me, it would classify as more risk because we got this area down here as, what if he smacks it back up? Again, like we discussed in previous videos, you're gonna be right, but are you willing to take that risk to be right? Or will you have that patience to wait through it? Okay? So, the best ones that I personally like are stuff like this. That do the nice rollover, they reattempt, and then they crash. Because then you get the lowest risk to reward. The lowest risk for the highest reward. And stuff like this, it almost feels like you're chasing it at times. In this 4-hour window right there. And then also in times like this, also feels like you're chasing it. Also a 4-hour window right there. Okay. And then finally this one also seems like you're chasing it in less than a 4-hour window. But high risk because you're just at support. Okay. So stuff like that. In fact, this trade would be down here because the dotted line is up there, right? So right there is your entry. Okay, almost feels like participating, not anticipating, because you're getting a price after a move is already undergo. So these are more complex and rated as higher risks. Okay, so this is a trend that we had a tingling that what if it's a range where it's still in a trend, and again, if you keep looking at it, it's actually still within that boundaries of all within the seller's territory, right? So this high movement coming in might make majority of the people start thinking, oh, it's a buy. It's a buy. So buy goes in, slows down, buy goes in stronger, slows down a little bit more. Or watching this carefully, we're going to put the line for the buyers now and say, let's take a look at this one. The line is here because we haven't made a higher high yet. Going further, okay, higher high breach happens. Put the line here where he's going up to challenge these guys again to see, because he's the responsible one. I didn't draw that. He's a responsible one. Goes up to challenge him. We're watching this guy is very, very strong, this rubber band man. He's coming in hot because there's no higher highs from here now. He's coming in hot. He's still in the buyer zone. He struggles on its way up. Struggles again. He's coming in hot. As he starts to breach, we're looking very carefully. Is he still going to hold in this area, or is he going to drop? Okay, what would you say at this moment? These are 4-hour candles. Imagine the time and patience required to unlock this information. You got to be very, very patient. What's going on in your mind right now? You're looking at this as an overall sell zone. Okay? Prices breached this breach line. They've gone higher, but they haven't breached the guy who was responsible. So you still know it's in the seller's territory. On the miniature scale, this is all in the buyer's territory, and it's not making a higher high for the longest time. No higher high. Let's draw in the line from the upper side. No higher high, no higher high, no higher high. So, comes crashing down You're looking at this very carefully and be like, well, what do I do now? Okay, think of the answer you have in your head, and I'm going to play this forward. Okay, now, I want you guys to think, whatever the answer you had in your head, was that right or wrong? And if it was right, pat yourself on the back, obviously. If it was wrong, think to yourself, what was the main piece of information that you missed? Okay, so just to help out with that, for those who might have got it wrong, in case you got it wrong, there's no problem about that. This is learning. We're learning anyways. If you got it wrong, when you have a situation like this, always side with the bigger move, which is, in this case, this fella. Okay, always side with the bigger move. That gives you a better understanding. Now, once you get onto this area where he starts to challenge these guys and starts to breach it, don't forget, as the buyers come up, pulls back, buyers come up, rolls over, buyers come up, no higher high, collapse happens, the line moves here. And all of this price, let me move this line a bit, and all of this price that keeps holding below that line tells you, now, not only do you have the big boy, but you also have the miniature cell saying, we're also good to go. Okay? And then the wave begins, very, very strong, and you're looking at this as, I know it's an overall trend, let me focus on the trend on the miniature scale, and I know we breached this area here, support equals resistance, it's still a trend, lower highs, lower lows, and as it pulls back, I'm watching it carefully, it's pulling back hot, I can't read my buyer's momentum yet, all I see is one strong move up, I can't read my seller's momentum, all I see is move down and an immediate push back up. What's going on? The collapse goes further and further and further. Okay? You can pause the video and think to yourself, how would you have traded that one as a trend? And if you're thinking this is also a trend trade, do not do trades like this. This one is wrong. This one is high risk. But do take a moment, pause, and think about this one. How would you have done this? What clues were present? Okay? All right, let's move on to the next example.